Hello and welcome to Hellbent Holler Live. Let us know in the chat. You can see us and hear us, and we will get started with the show. It's a spicy one, guys. Loud and clear. Thank you, Miranda Crew. It's a spicy one. You know, after last week was very dense. There was a lot of intense information, very dense information. We figured we would hit you guys with something a little wilder today, a little more salacious, I guess. But welcome to Hellbent Holler Live.
What might be the last Hellbent Holler Live, depending on how this show goes.
It might be. This is our weekly show. We do it 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, which is why you are all here on the Hellbent Holler YouTube channel. It's usually pretty informal, pretty free form. This is our weekly hangout where we can have fun. That's for all of you guys that are new to the show. This is your first time. If this is your first time to the show, bless you. Bless you. All right. So we've got a very, very crazy topic today, and it's one we've discussed doing for a while now. But we never knew when to kind of fit it in. And after last week's very serious show, we figured this would be the perfect time to do it. Welcome, Janet Lance, as a member to the channel. You picked the right time to do it. Right now is the right time.
No refunds.
No refunds.
No refunds.
And today, since it's such a spicy topic, and we'll get into that in a few minutes.
Butch Moffat's here live.
Butch!
Our buddy Butch is on the other side of the world. He's all the way down in Australia. He usually catches the reruns. Butch, good to see you.
We got
buddy.
Butch in the house.
Butch in the house. Thank you for that, buddy. Smog, remember for 19 months, Smog is an OG
Hellbender.
And he's a baller.
Yep.
Baller. Been a baller from the beginning. So
today we are discussing I was told to be Woodwives. I'm here for the Woodwives. Today we are discussing abducted by Bigfoot, Woodwives, crossbreeding, and the hidden genetic war. But before we get into that, you know what they call schizophrenia in my family?
What do they call that?
Old reliable.
Old reliable.
All right. So.
Well, I'm glad you ran that. Boy, Lady Wolf and Kim Drescher are just going to be doing double duty tonight. You know what I'm saying?
Doing the Lord's work.
Oh, good Lord. Doing the Lord's work, indeed. A couple other things before we get into this train wreck. Tristan Myers, Hellbent-tastic. Thank you for being a member, Tristan.
Thank you, Tristan.
Dixie After Dark's popped in.
What's up, Dixie?
Glad to have you, Dixie After Dark. First time catching it live. Thank you for joining us. Our buddy Okie.
What's up, Okie?
Thank you, Okie. We appreciate you, Okie. And then I had this down. Greetings from Haywood County. Underdog Films. We discussed in Boojum and Hootenanny. Actually, Jesse is from Haywood County.
I am.
Family's still up in there, so welcome, neighbor. Anyway, so yep, for the Mr. Blueberry, I'm pretty sure I've seen I Was a Bride of Bigfoot on those tabloid papers like The Sun in the 90s. That's exactly what the thumbnail is based on.
It's alluding to.
It's a homage to those very salacious kind of like sensational like Weekly World News back when the National Enquirer was like good with like alien abductions and like, Elvis is still alive.
I was Bigfoot's love slave.
Yeah. So topic of tonight that we're going to kind of discuss is basically what the title says, abducted by Bigfoot, but with a particular focus upon the dirty ass books of being abducted by Bigfoot.
Did you say the dirty ass books or the dirty aspects?
Dirty aspects.
But I thought you said the dirty ass books. But let's get started with that.
Either one could roll with that. So yeah.
And when we were kind of looking at stuff for tonight's episode, and we were kind of discussing stuff for tonight's episode, we had all of these things we were talking, we were just batting ideas back and forth and said, well, you know what, this applies, this incident could apply to this, we can bring this up, we can talk about this. We totally neglected to remember that there is a whole genre of Bigfoot romance.
Calling it romance is spreading it a little thin. You know what I'm saying? So
we'll call it a Bigfoot romance.
We'll call it Bigfoot romance.
That is a super, super popular genre of novels. We actually went to, what is the area? Is it Crossville, Tennessee? That's where the Buc-ee's is, where we used to go. The original Buc-ee's of Tennessee that we used to go to was in Crossville, Tennessee.
Everything is just
there is a used bookstore
mapped out in relation as to where it is next to a Buc-ee's. Oh, I remember the bookstore you're talking about. Yeah,
there is a used bookstore and we like to hit up any kind of used bookstores anywhere we go when we travel for conferences or we travel to do expeditions in other states. We always look for used bookstores in the area and hit those up because sometimes you can find some really good occult books or cryptid books, paranormal books. And so I like to hit up those stores and check that out and see what I can find in those. I went into that bookstore and I walked around and looked around for like the paranormal occult section. Couldn't find it. And I was like, all right, let me go ask the girl at the front. So I go to the front and I said, hey, I'm looking for books on, the occult or cryptids. She goes, like Bigfoot? And I said, yeah, like Bigfoot. Where would the Bigfoot books be? She goes, the Bigfoot romance is over there. And I was like, no, just more like informational, not informational, And she goes, oh, no. All we got is the sex books. And I said, oh, okay, thank you. So all we got is the Bigfoot
That's a
sex
big
books.
Market, man. That's a big market.
It is.
It's a big market.
Yeah. So, but we totally neglected to remember that while we were kind of doing show prep today, until we were sitting down talking right before the show began. And I checked the comments on the post where I shared the episode and was promoting the episode on Facebook. And lo and behold, our friend of Wild and Weird West Virginia, Joe Purdue, reminded us of that. So big shout out to Joe Purdue for reminding us of Bigfoot romance. Joseph?
That's all I got for tonight.
Okay,
I'm done.
well,
Let's go. Thanks
Thank
for joining us. Anyway, so yeah, I'm just kind of going through the chat is having a ball with us tonight. I knew this wouldn't be a show that appealed to everyone, but I knew that the ones that it appealed to, it would really appeal to them. So,
so we're gonna kind of cover a few concepts today. Everything has to do with the intermingling of humans and Bigfoot, whether it be Bigfoot taking someone for that purpose, whether it be humans, the hybridization program that humans create with Bigfoot, or Bigfoot trying to diversify their genetic pool.
Smog, thank you for that.
Thank you, Smog.
Very kind of you. Thank you so much. So the thing that was kind of the genesis for this show is I was watching We Are Very, Very Vain, and we were watching where I was on Alex Petakov's, is it Appalachian Bigfoot is the series?
Yeah.
Talking about the sighting I had as like maybe had as a kid, or the dream I had as a kid, or the hoax I got as a kid. And we were talking about the how I described what I saw looking at me that night. And when I was talking to Alex, and of course he's filming me while I'm talking to him, I go, have you ever seen the Neanderthals that are in Danny Vendramini's Them and Us book? I said it was like that with like a little bit of Harry and the Hendersons mixed in, but it was very similar to meaning like a longer head, like more of a cone type head and everything like that. But I was like, when I saw the Neanderthals from the Danny Vendramini book, I said, that just really just jumped out at me. And it's something that I think about pretty much all the time, those illustrations in there. So when we were watching this, watching that interview, I was like, pulled up something to kind of introduce Jesse to that topic where Danny Vendramini thinks that, hold on, sorry.
Just watching himself.
Well, I like to play that so in case because we might lose internet tonight. We've got another.
We lost internet yesterday.
So I've got it playing just in case we start to kind of freeze a little bit. Hopefully it's just going to go in and out, but we're not going to lose internet.
So we can monitor our feed. We look like we're doing okay right now. We turned everything off, but
Danny Benjamini's his theory, what he put forward, and it's almost like a thought experiment. A lot of people will argue, a lot of anthropologists will argue with his theories that he had in there, but he talks about how Neanderthals predated upon Homo sapiens to such a degree that it really, really shaped us as a species, and it continues to shape us to this day. And that a lot of things that are just basic tenets of human nature are all throwbacks to the days when we lived alongside Neanderthals, and they predated upon us. And one of the things that he puts forward in the book is that there was some crossbreeding that went on, but it was mostly Neanderthal males and human females, and it was not really a
voluntary situation.
Not really a Disney romance type thing. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna have to be kind of careful in our language tonight, so we don't get...
very much so. And let's try to touch upon this and not in the chat.
Curtis Whitaker.
Let's go easy in the chat on the language and stuff.
Don't get us kicked off YouTube.
We don't get banned today. Curtis Whitaker.
Curtis Whitaker. Just lurking in the shadows, jumped out. Curtis, my boy, thank you so much, Curtis. Boy, Curtis, we are very, very grateful, all kidding aside, for your support that you show us every week. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm leave it up there for a few minutes. But that was one of the main things of the book, is that Homo sapiens almost went extinct. We were predated down. It was a genetic bottleneck.
Yeah.
And there's some debate on that his version of it may or may not be true. And he talks about how there was a lot of inbreeding that went on with the humans that were left, and that we don't really have a lot of genetic diversity as a species because there were so few left at this point. And then Neanderthals are breeding with human females. Now, one of the things that kind of kept us from being wiped out entirely as a species is that usually the progeny of a Neanderthal male and a human female, if it was a male child, it would usually be sterile. And if it was a female child, well, obviously it would be a blend of Homo sapiens and Neanderthal, but it would be fertile. It could have children. And that generally, from what they can tell, is that usually the progeny of Neanderthal and humans would usually prefer other humans to be with, probably because Neanderthals, it's obviously they had a more, even compared to the time period that we're talking about, probably a more brutal existence,
Yeah.
So I was thinking about that, and that just kind of was the genesis for the show tonight that we were going to talk about. How this is there's folklore all across the world that deals with general, and it's not always the beast man and then a human woman. Sometimes it's vice versa, like Albert Ostman that we'll talk about here in a bit. But these stories are worldwide, and it spans cultures, it spans
continents,
time periods. We used the word that Woodwives were the Germanic version of dryads. This provocative Bigfoot version is new to me. Woodwives have been used to describe human females that have been abducted by Sasquatch and taken to be their wives at this point. The woodwife thing is generally, like you mentioned, they're generally woodland spirits, mostly from Germany and Scandinavia and whatnot. But the term woodwife has been used, and you mostly see it used when people are talking about, what is that movie that Bobcat Goldthwait did? Bluff Creek?
Willow Creek.
Willow Creek. If you've seen Willow Creek, the movie starts out with a couple going into the Willow Creek area. And it's actually Bryce, what's his name, from Expedition Bigfoot is the actor in that.
Yeah, it is.
And they're going into an area,
and this is a spoiler alert, we're going to tell you here, but the movie's been out long enough, so you should have already seen it.
So when they're going into this area, they see a missing person notice for a woman. And towards the end of the movie, they've been stalked by Bigfoot and everything like that. basically you come across the woman that has been missing in the woods. She's undressed and she's very dirty, stunned almost. And that's when you realize that Bigfoot is after them because he wants the woman out of the couple. It's going to be a woodwife. So but you are correct. That's the usual, that's the usual kind of like terminology for it. But you see woodwife bannered around a little bit as far as like the topic we're talking about tonight.
Yeah.
So these stories of abduction and of crossbreeding and whatnot, they, like you said, they span continents, they span time, just different time periods, they span different cultures. There's a thing, and Bonnie Blue is probably familiar with it. There's a thing called the ATU index. It's like Arn Thompson Uther index, and it's basically an index of folklore themes that repeat over a variety of different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And like pretty much most of the main fairy tales that will fall, pretty much all the main fairy tales will fall into the ATU index somewhere.
They fall into one of those categories?
One of these categories. Like there's is it the persecuted princess trope, which is like, Cinderella. Yeah, you do feel that one. Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, stuff like that. But these stories that you just have repeated over and over and over again, the names change, the locations change, some of the
details change, but the overall story itself, the concept remains the same. And it
you
spans over ages, it spans over cultures.
There's the deal with the devil trope where, they're broken down into like, major categories: magic, animals, nature, but there's one that actually is in there. It's ATU 425A, and it's basically the monkey bridegroom. Oof. Which is just basically across several cultures. You find it in Scandinavia, the Scandinavian region. You find it in all through Asia, Western Africa, just all of these different like regions of the world, some of which have no clue what a monkey actually is. And that's when you actually see it be with trolls or ogres or something like that. And it's basically
some sort of wild kind of, I don't want to say disgusting, but some sort of wild, repulsive creature.
It's not Beauty and the Beast type stuff.
Yeah.
There's no redemption arc.
Thank you, Miranda Crew, here for
Miranda.
the brides you might need after the night's show. Thank you, Miranda.
So what you have is with these stories, it's bestial wild men. Okay. It's not Beauty and the Beast type stuff. There's no romance that blossoms. It's a woman stolen from civilization, taken away against her will. And then the story usually ends with the death of the beast. And this woman is brought back at this point. Now, some of these are cautionary tales that don't have good endings. Okay.
Sort of a stay out of the woods kind of thing?
Stay out of the woods kind of thing. Or are they based upon things that have actually happened? Are they based upon, because this seems to be almost like a genetic memory that Homo sapiens has, no matter where it comes from, of something coming out of the woods at night and taking the women. There's a lot of like Native American stories that go along with this as well.
Mm-hmm.
For every one of these like stories about Sasquatch being like, the gentle forest brother, there's another one where Bigfoot is like the taker of women and children.
Yeah.
So
I know that in the Pacific Northwest, there were a lot of legends like that with the native tribes out in the Pacific Northwest. But with the Cherokee tribe, there's the legend of Sukaloo, which is described as a slant-eyed giant that comes from the forest.
With 6 fingers or 7 fingers? So
6 fingers, I think.
Okay.
I don't know how many fingers. I wasn't ready for that one. I wasn't prepared for the finger quiz. But Sukaloo, I remember reading a account in James Mooney's book, The History and Formulas of the Cherokee, that there was a story of a widow and her daughter, and the daughter lived in the winter house outside of the main house. And she told her daughter to wait for the right man to marry and make sure he was a good hunter. And then Sukaloo, the mountain giant, the forest giant, the slant-eyed forest giant, was actually a great hunter. He was huge. He was a great hunter. And he would bring her deer meat. He would bring her meat every night and then come and visit the daughter every night. So she wed Sukalu. And then he would leave before dawn, and the mother could never see him, never saw him. She finally wanted to see her son-in-law that was bringing them so much good meat. And she came early one day and saw him in the house, and he was so large and in the house, and she screamed and made him angry, and he left. And a couple different versions of the story, different things happen, but he impregnates the daughter and they have a child. But it's the same kind of thing, but it's a voluntary matching when it comes to that legend, as opposed to some of the legends from the Pacific Northwest tribes out there. There was a high instance of these creatures taking women and children from the tribes instead of a voluntary matching or mating of them.
Well, and that's the thing, is that what's funny is, like, as far as like the folklore goes, there's another subcategory, and I don't remember what the ATU index number is, but there's a monkey bride subcategory where usually it's a human male is married to a female, like a monkey bride. But in this, generally, there's usually some sort of transformative quality to it, where the bride will eventually become a beautiful woman, or they're able to break a curse that she's under and everything like that. That has more the stereotypical kind of Disney feel to it, but it is with the monkey bridegroom ones, where it's the male, let's just call it Sasquatch, wild man, whatever, that's doing this. Well, that's usually not so friendly, and it's usually, it's not a willful type of thing. But what gets me is it's so cross-cultural at this point. And again, even cultures that didn't really have any experience with like hairy primates, they'd never seen a chimpanzee or anything like that. They still have, they might call them trolls, they might call them ogres, they might call them something else, but it's always the same sort of story. Okay. And like I said, I go back to that. I go back to that where, I'm not saying the Them and Us book is 100% correct, but I think that maybe you have millennia, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where we were side by side with Neanderthals, and they know that there was conflict going on. They know that there was interbreeding going on. They know that around that time we were basically taken down to, they say, between 40 and 80 humans. That was all that was left. Okay. All that was left. And they say there might have been little pocket remnants scattered around the rest of the world. But it just seems like in that case, something would be that would be a survival instinct at that point, bred into your mind, to just stay in there going, watch out for these big hairy things that come out of the woods. Watch out for these big hairy things that will try to take your wives, try to take your daughters, take your children. And then if your wives and daughters come back, they might have children that aren't 100% human at that point. So it's something that always fascinates me, because you see parallels with that with North American, like, let's just call it Bigfoot lore at this point. There's lots of, not a lot. There used to be more, but again, the topic of Bigfoot has been, like we say, Disneyfied a lot over the last few years. And I think that's one of a couple of reasons why. It's because people want it to be good and they like those sorts of stories.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I think the behavior of the Sasquatch that are out there has tempered a great deal over the last 100 years or so.
And I think you've speculated before on one of these shows where we discuss stuff like this, that you think it may have tempered because of the introduction of firearms into the situation.
Thank you again, Miranda. Here's $20 to make Bigfoot holler. Thank you. They
everybody's corrected me on the seven fingers.
Seven fingers, and Judah Colorado. Is it 7 fingers?
Believe me, everybody has corrected me on it. Yes, it's 7 fingers. I got you.
So, lost my train of thought. But I think that possibly Sasquatch has tempered their behavior because of that. Because humanity, human population in at least North America is much, much greater than it was before the advent of Europeans here.
Right.
Our tools have gotten better. Our weapons have gotten infinitely better. And it's just certain Native American tribes very much lived in fear of these creatures. Even the ones that had a lot of respect for them, there was still fear there. There were sometimes competitors, but they acted with a lot more impunity back then. So I think that behavior, if there is some sort of abduction for the purpose of procreation, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think that it would be a lot more selective and a lot more targeted now.
Yeah.
Much more opportunistic than just willy-nilly, you bust into the village while the men are away, get what you can, and then you're gone. So, but it is...
Joe Perdue, I guess we conjured him. We Beetlejuice Joe Perdue when we talked about Bigfoot smut. He goes, someone is missing their chance to write Seven-Finger Monster smut.
So, and the big case that everybody talks about was in British Columbia, I believe it was 1871. There was a Native American woman by the name of Seraphine Long. She was actually abducted, or she was reported that she was abducted. Something, now they didn't call it a Bigfoot, they called it a wild man. 7.5 foot tall, extremely like muscular, covered in hair, grabbed her off a path and rubbed tree gum on her eyes, basically like sap on her eyes to blind her. So her eyes were stuck closed, and then ran off with her. And the description of it is really weird the way it was written down. There's certain key things that she focused on. She focused on how well and how effortlessly the creature seemed to be running, and that she sensed she was moving at a great speed, but he wasn't breathing heavy at all.
Mm-hmm.
And this one it was an abduction, but you kind of almost get the feeling that she's a little into the Bigfoot. You know what I'm saying? She's very impressed with his physicality and like his physical prowess. And he goes to swim a river, and she has a choice of letting go and letting the current take her, or holding on. She doesn't want to drown, so she holds on. He lets her go so he can swim. They get on the other side of the river. You
also have to think too, in that point in time, like nowadays, a woman can pretty much marry or be with any type of man that she wants to be with, whether that be a very small, effeminate man or a large, gruff, strong man. But in that time, you wanted the strongest hunter. You want, like, the women desired the strongest hunter. You wanted to survive. The goal was survival, not necessarily marry for love, but marry for advancement, survival, and prosperity.
Well, you almost get that feeling in this way that the description goes. This wild man that has her, she can't see, so she's starting to. And what's crazy too about that is that that's another element that you often see pop up in various folklore, some sort of some sort of substance applied to the eyes during these abductions. You see it with some alien abduction. You see it with some fairy lore, folklore abductions, where there's some sort of like agent applied to your eyes to kind of aid the abductor in being able to kind of get you away at that point.
Yeah.
So he basically takes her up,
or
this
even
mountain.
fairy glamour.
Yeah, and she's talking about how it's getting colder, but she's very warm because his body heat is coming out. You know what I'm saying? And she does talk about how, even though she was warm, she could tell that the air was getting thinner.
Yeah.
So he basically takes her up, takes her into some sort of structure, she thinks, and he takes the substance off her eyes, the tree gum off her eyes. And she's in like a circular type of like cave dwelling. It's very comfortable. It's very clean. There's animal skins like all over the walls and the roof of this place and on the floor.
Sounds like I'd love it.
You'd absolutely love it.
I would love it.
And she's struck by how masterfully tanned the animal skins are. She said that the skins were tanned and preserved in a way far superior to what the Native Americans, the First Nations tribes were able to do down there.
So this is a guy of brawn and skill.
Got everything you want. So now keep in mind too, this wild man, 7.5 feet tall. I would assume First Nations woman, 1870, 5'2", something like that.
Smaller than that. I'm 5'2".
Yeah. So,
I've got nutrition.
maybe 100 pounds, 110 pounds, something like that. So just the size difference had to be just completely just intimidating.
Insane. Yeah.
Insane. But, and there were
It had to be about like the meme you told me about earlier today.
Yes, indeed. Let's not talk about that.
We are not going to talk about that.
We will get kicked off of YouTube. Artemis goes, so hot. But there were
Artemis is here for it. Artemis has been commenting the entire time so far, and Artemis is here for it.
So, and there were 2 other Sasquatch in the cave that both seemed to be kind of older. And she was under the impression that she had been brought there basically to be the bride of this creature. And bride she was, because when she finally made it back to civilization, she was pregnant.
In the chat, they're saying that she was returned to civilization. One person said that she became sick and was returned
to come
That's
back.
What Marcus Aurelius
they were
said.
not able to. They were not able to heal her at that point.
Yeah.
So, and she had a hybrid child, part Sasquatch, part human at that point.
Surviving the Strange suggests that she wanted him to commit and he wasn't ready. She was alpha widowed, as it were.
So they howling underdogs is losing signal. I'm hoping we don't lose signal.
Yeah, we've got bad weather right now.
Bad weather rolling in right now. We can hear it out here. But the child did not survive, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying? The child did not survive. And you would look at, well, there'd be some difficulties with some of that, wouldn't it be? If you would have a human 5'1" human woman, you would assume that the child that is half Sasquatch, half human would be larger than a normal human baby.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been issues with the actual, carrying portion of it. And there's one of the things that struck me that when we were talking about this, there's a thing called hybrid vigor that is generally when 2 animals that are genetically compatible breed, the offspring is often better than either one of the parents. Like think of like a liger, a lion and a tiger.
Or a mule.
A mule, exactly. Yeah. So, and
now are they usually sterile as a result of that as well?
A lot of times, but but hybrid vigor, and I was thinking about it, is that
I guess you would have that genetic diversity that would really kind of be like the next step in evolution for both.
If you start going down that hybrid vigor kind of like path, and let's say that we know that when Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, the Neanderthal DNA we have is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it would have just been lost over time. Those would not be helpful genetic traits to have, and they would eventually have been bred out of of humanity.
Yeah.
But instead, they've stayed because a lot of those Neanderthal traits that we picked up were helpful to our survival. So if that same thought process could be applied to Sasquatch and then humans, crossbreeding, and then the offspring, maybe it would have the best of both worlds for it. The physicality of a Sasquatch, maybe the intelligence of a human. And let's say that it, just like with Neanderthals and humans, some of the offspring at least was not sterile.
Mm-hmm.
You've basically supercharged your species at that point. Let's say the dominant gene.
And say that whatever these hybrids are, say they have the powers that it seems like Sasquatch has, these abilities that you actually discussed last week.
Yeah.
That maybe that is stronger in that hybrid than it would be in the original form of the Sasquatch. Thank you, Sheila P, for that
Thank
super
you,
sticker.
Sheila. We greatly appreciate it. So, but my thing was this, is that if it was basically, let's say the Sasquatch genes were the dominant genes in this, but that humanity's got something to offer, okay, and is able to bring some genetic diversity into like the bloodline and into the species, and it's beneficial. Well, that would kind of be like just basically a supercharge to the Sasquatch species at that point that would fade over time.
Yeah.
And would eventually start to breed out, and they would need to bring in that genetic diversity again.
speaking of genetic diversity, and JD Smooth has a great point. I just saw this and I just had to show you guys this and share this. Here's the thing. The female Bigfoot of the clan can only mate with the alpha male. So you have a lot of males in the clans that have to find other mates outside of the clan. That's assuming that's how their social structure is set up. But that is an interesting point that would lead to the it would be necessary for these other males to go out and find others.
But I just, like I said, when I thought of that, I was just going, you know, that makes sense, man. That makes sense that if you needed that occasional boost of genetic diversity and maybe kind of bringing those helpful human traits into like the Sasquatch species, and this is all hypothetical. We're not saying this is happening, but it's an interesting thought experiment, don't you think?
Yeah.
And you start to see that maybe there could be some logic to this. You know, there could be some logic to this. And maybe it doesn't happen as often as it used to, but let's say it happened a whole lot more in the past, and that would explain the prevalence of all of this folklore that would explode across so many cultures at this point. And then if you start to get into the territory of, well, Sasquatch is not a, you know, there's nothing really woo about it. It's not a big gorilla. It's not a undiscovered ape. It's a relic hominid, Neanderthal, one of the other species. And then all of a sudden it makes even more sense. You know what I'm saying? Makes even more sense. You'd have very pocket populations with not a lot of genetic diversity, and they would occasionally need to get some new genes in there to keep them from basically stagnating at that point. And again, maybe it happened a lot in the past, and maybe now it just happens because, again, humans have brought intelligence into the mix. You know what I'm saying? They're smart. They're strong and powerful enough to exist without tools, other than limited ones, clubs, spears, and anything like that. But they never had an industrial revolution or anything like that. Stone Age, basically technology at best. But they're strong enough to exist at that level, but they're smart enough to understand the stuff that they're seeing around them.
Yeah.
People are always like, well, how do they know what cameras are? Well, maybe they've got enough intelligence to kind of put two and two together at that point. We don't know what it does, but they're trying to point it at us. We don't want that, you know, so let's try to avoid them as much as possible at that point. Trista had a real good little point here that I'm going to throw in. There are studies in the equine world stating it doesn't matter how big the stallion, the baby will only grow as big as possible for the mare to carry. There you go. Well, here's the deal.
I did not know that at all.
I didn't know that in the slightest. And
horses are a mystery to me. Because
you don't like horses.
I'm terrified of horses. Terrified of them.
So kind of go down through here.
I'm going through the chat right now. I've got some stuff marked on there, and I'm still going through here as well. Lots of discussion here.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. And
also, it turns out a lot of men are terrified of short women.
So,
Joe is 6'3".
Yes.
I'm 5'2".
So, our buddy Marcus, there was supposedly a female Sasquatch captured in Russia. And the female Bigfoot integrated with the villagers and supposedly gave birth to a
I guess that's referring to the Xana of, is it Abkhazia?
I have no clue. It's something similar to that. Yeah.
I was reading an article about that because I was looking into some stuff when it came to this, and I was looking at an article about that, and there's been a lot of discussion on that. I think that it was allegedly she was a Sasquatch woman, but she had been captured by what amounted to like a carnival barker. He was like a local nobleman, and he kept her captive. And she was pretty much treated like a slave and a prisoner by a local village, and impregnated several times by local villagers. They could not find her grave, but there was a DNA study done where they found one of her offspring, one of her son's graves, and they tested his DNA, and it turns out that she was actually an African woman, like a sub-Saharan African woman. So I think it was kind of a huge misidentification. And
was that actually, because you know more about that than I do, Santa Bigfoot DNA study.
And I think it was basically a carnival barker with xenophobia in a way.
Brian Sykes, the guy who did the genetic study on Bigfoot not too long ago. I guess he analyzed DNA from Xana's granddaughter. But here's where you go to.
Now, they say she was really hairy. She was dark-skinned, hairy. So she might have had, hypertrichosis?
Yes.
Which is also, interestingly enough, like the werewolf syndrome.
Yeah. Well, you know, here's the deal, though. It's a lot of people have said that these genetic studies that are done on Sasquatch are not giving you the full truth. And whether somebody believes that or not, whatever, it's up for you to make your own decision.
So it's sort of actually, it turns out this was this, it's not this, and they're hiding the truth from it. She could have possibly actually been a.
Why is the Smithsonian?
Is it Almanastes?
Almanastes, yeah. Why is the Smithsonian supposedly hiding 9-foot tall skeletons? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it just seems like there's an argument that could be made that there is sometimes a concerted effort to hide some of the weirder things in the world that might challenge our place in it.
Yeah.
So, but it's the hybrid vigor thing. I always go back to that. I go back to the fact that
Surviving the Strange said he's going to start including that on his dating profiles.
Hybrid vigor. So it's
or something to that effect.
Trying to see what else is in here in the chat, and let's see.
Jerpadu's got one right here. Ancient Sasquatch theory: Sasquatch abducting other hominids to create a stronger, more resilient DNA structure that's somewhat similar to some alien abduction theory.
That kind of thought process goes pretty much across the entire high strangeness spectrum. You have that, like Joe said, with alien abduction and the genetic experiments and the genetic harvesting that seems to take place. And then you get into the alien hybrids. Well, then you go back not too terribly long ago, and you have the changeling phenomenon with fairy folklore, where often there would be fairy folklore. They're thinking that a purebred like elf fairy was brought in and basically fostered with a human family. Well, some of the folklore would go into, if it is folklore, would go into the fact that they would take young, attractive, beautiful, bright, brilliant humans into fairy, their dimension, whatever you want to call it, basically for breeding purposes, because their blood was like old and thin. The fae were just that their beauty was all glamour, and they were basically a species in decay at this point. And they were always very attracted to, like, very young, bright, beautiful people, musicians, especially artists, everything like that, because they wanted that influx of like spirit into their species at this point. So you see this with just pretty much every kind of brand of high strangeness that they have at this point. Often goes into something wanting to get the vitality that humanity has.
Yeah.
Something wants that there's an indescribable quality that humanity has. A soul's genetic diversity, whatever, but they want it. They want it for themselves. They're lacking it. And that's also in great, like lots of different folklore. There's stuff outside of our reality that wants what we have, and they're willing to take it in a lot of cases. So, all right, see what else we got. Actually, have more people on tonight than what I expected.
Yeah.
I would not have expected this many people to be into this. We figured we'd just roll the dice with this topic tonight.
Bigfoot's Mutt novels are a big seller.
Obviously. So let's see what else we got in the chat here. Here's another one too. Flip side, what do you think about Albert Osterman's story, being kidnapped by a Bigfoot to be a mate for the daughter? So basically the same concept, but the genders are reversed in this.
Yeah, yeah. And the Albert Ostman story is interesting because he stayed with them for 6 days. I think it was like 6 days, but he stayed with them and then finally escaped by giving the large Bigfoot snuff, I believe it was.
Yeah.
But what made him think that was what the intention was?
They saw, I
didn't the female Sasquatch make him a bed of leaves or something, like create something?
And what's crazy is that's one of the stories I'm not that familiar with. But if I remember correctly, it was like the way that they were acting, that he was getting the impression that he had been
presenting him to her,
and presenting her to him, that basically he thought, I'm here to to mate with this creature. You know, I'm here to be her mate. And again, here's the deal. If you have very low population density, extremely low population density,
and all the Sasquatch boys are freaking bums.
They are playing video games, smoking weed all day long. You know what I'm saying? So
you got to grab a man in a sleeping bag and throw him over your shoulder and take him through the woods, you know.
But he people are just going, just gave him those eyes.
So that happened in 1924. I saw another thing. You know that Ape Canyon happened in 1924, according to this.
You think that's why they were trying to get to the miners?
I think they were trying to get in there to get to the miners to get
some mining going on, for God's sake. So
break some rocks. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say those were male Bigfoots trying to get in. That might have been the hot, horny ladies.
So, but again, he escaped. He was able to. He had pulled out some snuff, and the male Sasquatch saw him using it, if I remember correctly, and he basically gave the male Sasquatch all the snuff, and he basically just like ate it all. You know what I'm saying? And I got sick or something, and Albert Ostman was able to kind of grab his stuff and run for it at that.
Have you ever done a big wad of dip?
I've never done dip at all. So yeah.
I had a friend who gave me a big wad of dip and said, "Oh, try this." And so it was really big, and I put it in, and I got insanely ill. I had to crawl away because and go throw up because it was just the nicotine just made me sick. So I could see that a large helping of snuff would take out a Bigfoot.
So if Jesse ever kidnaps any of you all, keep some snuff in your pocket.
Just toss a little snuff at me.
Toss a little snuff at
Put me right out.
Marcus goes, Albert Ostman also described in great detail descriptions of Bigfoot long before many physical traits were only known many years later. Snuff rules. So
he didn't talk about it until years after. I think it was like 20 years after that he talked about the whole incident, that he kept it to himself. And a lot of people wrote it off as the ramblings of an old man or misremembering, but I don't think you can misremember an incident like that.
That's pretty hard to like misremember at this point, man. So it, and it's, second, I'm pulling up my.
JD Smooth brought this up. I remember this was a thing. Was this the thing on Sasquatch Chronicles? I also believe they are mating with other animals like bears, horses, and cows.
Well, there was always been the thing about the horses.
The horses thing, I remember that explicitly. As disturbing as that was. Speaking of that, Sasquatch Chronicles. There was an episode of Sasquatch Chronicles, and I had to ask MK to find me the number for it, and I don't remember which number it is. But it's that very disturbing episode of Sasquatch Chronicles, speaking of people wanting to mate with the Sasquatch, where that guy goes to that old woman's house, and she's got the Sasquatch there, and the juvenile is in the house, but then there's the older sister outside, who is pretty young, though, about 8 or 9 years old, I think they said in the thing, because that's what I was looking at and seeing. And then he saw her. She's like a teenager, a young teenage Sasquatch, perhaps. And he was sexually attracted to her.
He kept talking about how well-formed she was. She wouldn't shut up about it.
He would not stop talking about how attractive this female Sasquatch was. And like, he just kept going on and on. And that is, I hate listening to that episode. I was going to listen to it again, and I could not bring myself to do it because it just makes me so weirded out to listen to this guy go on and on at how this young Sasquatch female is just so attractive.
I remember that one, and I remember that had such a backlash from like the Sasquatch Chronicles community. People, I think, still talk about that episode to this day.
I talk about it because I'm disturbed by it.
Well, you know, I mean, it's generally, again, just like we would think with the Neanderthal Homo sapiens. Mostly it was being done male Neanderthal to, and that's the other thing too, that's always in all of these stories, even the stories of the Nephilim and, you know, biblical stories. They're always like, they look upon the daughters of man and they find them fair. It's always just that other species find human women attractive, and you don't really get that vice versa type thing. You know what I'm saying? You know, you don't really get that human men are attracted to the female species of these other like types of creatures.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's Cryptid Castleberry is like, is that why they braid horse manes? That was a story that was going around for the longest time. Now, horse mane braiding, and if Bonnie Blue is still in the chat, she can back me up on this. That's all across different types of lore. They used to believe that fairies did that they would braid horses' manes, that witches would do that. There's a lot of crossover between witch folklore and fairy folklore in a lot of areas. But the thought is that, and I'll have to be very delicate in my language here, is that one Sasquatch would kind of comfort the horse and braid its mane to kind of keep it calm, while the other Sasquatch.
The old diversion.
The old diversion trick, you know what I'm saying? You know?
Yes.
So.
Somebody mentioned this earlier. It's way back. I might have marked it earlier. And you and I discussed this a little bit when we were talking about this episode. The missing 411 phenomenon. And, you know, there's the theory that some of these people are abducted by Sasquatch. Is there a possibility that some of these people are abducted by Sasquatch for this hybridization?
Well, I mean, again,
goal? I mean, you know, a lot of, and several of the people that are abducted are German scientists.
They
got good resumes.
Well, what's weird. All right. So what's weird is that the missing 411 lore goes, people are usually on either end of the spectrum of like humanity.
Yeah.
Exceptionally well physically gifted, you know, athletes, triathletes, you know, almost professional level physical, you know, athletes, high levels of intelligence. And then the other end of the spectrum is you have people that have physical ailments. They're sickly. Sometimes there's some sort of like mental handicap that comes into play often. And I've often wondered,
isn't there a pattern of some people having genetic disorders as well?
Yeah. And it's I've often wondered and this is gruesome, are they taking certain people for the genetic gifts they have to offer, and then other people for sustenance?
Oh.
Or is it the simple fact that there's some sort of knowledge of genetic diversity going on here that we don't have?
Yeah.
There's high levels of autism in some of the missing 411 clusters that take place.
Yeah.
And you know that there's that theory that Sasquatch often display characteristics and qualities that we would find similar to autistic humans, stacking the, you know,
or even that whole telepathy situation with the telepathy tapes where you can
nonverbal human children are able to communicate.
Nonverbal communication and telepathy.
So maybe they're looking for genetic diversity where maybe
to enhance those characteristics.
Exactly right. They're looking for intelligence and physical characteristics on one end, and then they're looking for, let's just call them spiritual or paranormal characteristics on the other end that maybe we're not fully aware of, you know? So, but there is something going on that it's very much on either end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So like Joe says, the rocking and swaying pattern recognition, all of this stuff. Yeah. The telepathy tapes definitely, you know, and again, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's researchers are certain researchers are putting this forward. Other researchers are saying there's no data to it, are saying that autistic children, nonverbal autistic children, basically are displaying telepathy at this point, that they're able to communicate with each other, their caregivers, doctors that they form bonds with. And, you know, we just did a show on Bigfoot telepathy and mind speak. I think I even touched upon that on that show, didn't I?
Yeah,
that show's a freaking blur, boy. You know what I'm saying? So we packed a lot into that. So
I do have a little piece of humor for us.
what is that?
A little humor for tonight.
Shall we
have a little humor? Ben J. Good evening. This is the uncomfortable yet vital part of the show. Jesse and Joe are going to need test subjects in the field for further case study documentation on the matter. Unfortunately, Ben J is booked for the next 10
Damn
months.
it, Ben. All right. You know what? Get back to us when you're free.
But you all can sign up at the form provided at the end of the show.
Basically,
we're going to stake them out there like the goat in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, but they're not going to get eaten.
Nah.
So anyway, well, there we go. So, and it's something that just comes back to me that I think that if you accept that any of these phenomena are real, you have to accept all of the baggage that comes along with them. And I don't think that we could go, well, it seems to happen with what we would consider the non-human intelligence aspect of it. You know, there seems to be some sort of like, I mean, they even think that there's a breeding program, that there's an entire population of human alien hybrids walking the earth right now.
Yeah.
Preparing the world for an eventual takeover.
Well, they think that there's a breeding program that our own government is doing with, say, Dogman. You know, it seems like hybridization kind of is cross spectrum, cross species, the desire to have these hybrids and have a purpose for them to take over.
So JD's on fire tonight. JD goes, people also need to understand sometimes that gifting is actually a mating ritual. Well, one of the things we were going to touch upon is
when Joe first approached me romantically.
That wasn't what I was going to go with, but go ahead. Yeah.
I showed the knife that you gave me, the first intention knife, you know, that was a gifting thing. That was sort of a mating ritual. You gave me a knife though.
Indeed. So, but we were talking earlier that there is something, at least in our experience, that, and again, I have a sample size of 1. I have done these investigations with one woman. Yes, but there is something to, and there's I can't say there's something. There's a big something to the idea that women seem to, or at least this woman seems to attract these phenomena. I'll be out solo again this week, weather permitting, and if we don't for maybe 48 hours with like a destructive storm rolling through us, but I rarely have anything happen when I'm out solo.
Yeah.
And that, in fact, that's the experiment now. I'm going into some areas where I had stuff physically happen to me when I was with her to see if maybe something will happen to me again when she's not around. But when I was out solo, mostly during the day, about a week ago, nothing happened. You know what I'm saying? Nothing really happened at all. I didn't really get the feeling that anything was going to happen. It was hot and dangerous because there's all that weird stuff on the ground and the booby traps, you know what I'm saying? But
usually it's hot and dangerous for another reason.
Yes, but it's but there is some truth to that. And the feeling that I got when we were in the Blackthorn area and something hit me in the eye, something got thrown and hit me beneath the eye, was that I was not wanted there. But then Jesse, meanwhile, is hearing noises and going in that direction and finding white quartz. It's leading her to
skulls.
Leading her to like hog skulls and hog jaws in the tree.
Yeah.
And she took the skull with her. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going,
that's the second skull that I found that was left in a direction that brought me in something brought me in that direction. That's the second skull that I took from there. Now, I remember, you talk about females out in the field and females out researching, and maybe that kind of draws in something. And it has to do with this, of course. I remember you telling me one time about some Bigfoot researcher who was taking used feminine products. Oh, yes. Hanging them in the trees.
If Joe's in here, he'll remember who that is.
Joe Perdue, he won't tell us.
He was raiding.
He was raiding like
trash cans,
truck stop bathrooms,
basically, and like rest stops and stuff like that, and taking feminine hygiene products that were used in an attempt to
lure it in.
I
think I like the rib tactic a little better than the tampon tactic. You know what I'm saying?
It was one of
who was it? Joe Perdue, tell us in the chat.
God, who was that?
Did he film himself doing this, or did he talk about it?
I can't remember at this time. I mean, my search history is going to be just, good God, because I'm getting ready to type in exactly what you think I'm getting ready to type in to try to find this.
What was making me, and we talked about this on the show, so don't anybody get like offended or flabbergasted. When we played those vocalizations on the show a couple of weeks ago that we actually got in the Uwharrie National Forest, you mentioned that the day that we got that crazy vocalization that thing was just going absolutely hog wild out in the woods and actually threw something at us.
Yeah.
You mentioned this, so I'm not letting any cats out of the bag here, but I was actually on my time at that point. And we kind of discussed that as it being a possible factor in that, we're out in the woods, that's happening. So could that be kind of a possible factor? Could tampon in the tree guy not be as crazy as we think he is?
Well, I think it was it Rick Dyer? It's one of those people like that, I think. I can't remember.
I thought he brought the ribs.
Marcus Aurelius, thank you for that.
Thank you, Marcus
Jesse
Aurelius.
is a human dowsing around to the paranormal. Yeah, and we don't know if it's just something unique about her. I think that there's something in the fact that she's a female, because sometimes I've felt that whatever's out there doesn't, and again, it's a feeling, you can't quantify it, but I mean, that's the feeling I've gotten, is that this seems unwelcoming to me, but welcoming to her, that I'm not wanted here, but it wants her here still. And that we had that one incident that we talked about.
You wouldn't let me become a woods wife, would you?
I would not let you become a woods wife. And that's the creepiest freaking scene in a movie that ain't that creepy. Willow Creek.
Yeah.
The very end.
Yeah.
There's a spoiler alert, so hit your mute button now if you have not seen Willow Creek.
I already said it, and then you told them to hit the mute button. You're supposed to say
so they're all
mute.
muted. But they, at the end, like I said, they stumble into the woman that's missing, and it's obvious she's been abducted by Sasquatch, and Sasquatch is there for the other woman in this couple, you know, and that's what he's after. It's such a creepy scene. But
I'm so behind in the chat.
In the chat, let me see here. See what else we got here. People talking about the used products.
I got to get down there. I'm trying to watch other things here. I'm trying to look at other stuff here way back, and then
the Bigfoot community never fails to have some people that just weird me out.
Everyone.
Pretty much, yeah, like 99%. Yeah.
My favorite video of David Paulides is where he goes, "Let me tell you something about the Bigfoot community. It's full of psychos." And he's like looking you dead in the camera,
full
just
saying,
"It's full of psychos." You would know, David, wouldn't you?
All right, let's see what else we have. So,
where are they, David?
But yeah, so you guys let us know what you think about it here at this point. I mean, I'm not saying it's happening, but I'm just saying once you, this is a good one. Hold on. Soviet scientists who supposedly created a humanity, and the Soviets were also supposedly creating like human ape hybrids for soldiers. Bonnie Blue's got a good one. There's also a blood type or genetic marker that gets abducted more often by cryptids and aliens. It's like what is it? It's RH negative. Of course, the first thing that I see here, RH negative is usually tied in with alien abductions, that they focus on people with RH negative blood. And I'm reading off Google because I don't know this off the top of my head. It's 15% of the world's population is RH negative. And somebody is saying that keep them entertained for a moment. So I have to kind of look on something here because I'm having a
oh my God, Lady Wolf. I just got to the part with the products. She goes, "Lot lizard leftovers." Ah!
Now, rhesus monkeys can have RH negative blood. And I'm wondering if there's something where maybe a species would find the RH negative qualities attractive. And I'm just kind of talking out of my butt right now because I don't know what those qualities would be. But Bonnie Blue is right that sometimes those people seem to, at least as far as the lore goes, be abducted more often. So
Christopher Lineberry, did you see this part here? He goes, "It's probably Jesse's Indian and Irish genetics, if I'm incorrect. There appears to be an interest in this genetics of these people."
I didn't know that about the Irish, although the Irish folklore is very, very rich with abductions, more so than most other European folklore.
Yeah.
So I did not know that Irish was considered a modern day thing, but yeah, the Cherokee portion of it. So What is this? Phantom Miner 49er. Hi guys, please read the message I left for you on the website. If that's our website, that would have gotten emailed to us. I will look through and see if you leave Phantom Miner 49er. Our email is a mess. We're getting so many emails right now, but I'll try to find that for you, my friend. Thank you for the contribution to this wonderful thing that we're doing here. Wow, look at this. Just, you know what I'm saying? Alien abduction, monkey wives, all 9 yards, you know. So anyway,
we're doing the Lord's work. Not really.
not at all. So,
not at all.
But it's I don't know. Like I said, it's food for thought, man. I think that it's a possibility, and I think that the reason why it kind of sparked me too was the discussion with the Neanderthal and the Neanderthal breeding patterns that seem to take place with Homo sapiens, and then our own personal experience that whatever's out there that we are interacting with seems like it's focused on you. And sometimes I'm just there. They don't really pay any attention to me. But on a couple of occasions, I have felt very much unwelcome, like it doesn't want me there. And that's very much true at Blackthorn. Again, to reiterate all I said earlier, where I got hit underneath the eye, and then you're following quartz, finding like skulls that seem like they have been placed there for you to discover.
And definitely knows what, my taste too.
Yeah, right? No way to a girl's heart, man. So, so let's see here.
Did you see Tracy Crane?
No, what is it?
Tracy Crane.
Tracy Crane.
A lot, but want to show my support again. Love you both. Thank you, Tracy.
Tracy,
Crane.
hope everything's going well for you. So, hope everything is going well. And
is this the show you want to support?
Is Tracy? This the show, Tracy? You know what? This is
the one you committed to.
Quintessential. Quintessential Hellbent holler. Mr. Boobear, wait until you come across a female Sasquatch and she wants to snatch you off for a cave wedding, Joe. The other thing that I thought of,
I'm gonna snatch that weave. So
obviously,
quick.
snatch the.
I'm gonna snatch that weave so quick.
Is the Patterson Gimlin film has a female Sasquatch supposedly, and the Albert Osterman case, there was a female Sasquatch there. But generally, I think everybody's, and I don't have the statistics at hand, but I think we could all agree that most Bigfoot reports and experiences usually deal with what appear to be male Sasquatch.
Yeah. That's what was so strange about the Patterson Gimlin film, is that it was a female. It would be a lot easier to create a suit of a male. So that's what made it so strange, is it was a female with breasts.
So maybe, you start. So with Neanderthals, like we said, that when they would procreate with humans, the males would be sterile, the females would be fertile. Now, genetically, I can think off the top of my head a few reasons why that might be so. And this might not even be possible, but maybe the flip side is true for the Sasquatch situation. Maybe the females come out mostly sterile, but the males are still able to procreate.
Yeah.
And that's why it's mostly males being seen. And that's why there's always a lot of Sasquatch activity that seems to go on around females who are out in the field.
I have a little small part here. Tracy Crane is 4'11" and an Army veteran. So yes, this is the one she wants to support.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Tracy.
She's on fire.
So,
I was wondering, in all of these stories, Bigfoot is akin to humans. It's sort of a hominid type creature, right? Very similar characteristics. Is that why you hear a lot about this sort of thing, about Sasquatch taking people, and not so much, you don't hear about, say, the same kind of instances with, say, Dogman, that it's too far flung that it wouldn't be an issue.
If you just, again, I come back down to this, that this is all like a thought experiment, and I can't rule anything out at this point.
There are horny books about the Dogman.
Well, I'm going to sidetrack real quick here, because one of the things that we've always talked about is there are a large number of people that go missing, a large number of people that go missing in wilderness areas that are never found, comparatively speaking, not like 20% of the population or something like that, but a lot of people. And you
Did
always
you say not like 20? Not like 20%.
no, not 20%
Okay,
of the people.
I was like, Joe, that's a big.
No, I said not like 20% of the population, but a lot of people.
I was going to say that's a big number.
So, but we mentioned earlier, like that's one of the things that always like baffles me is how do they know these things? Maybe they've seen a firearm in action. They know to respect it and avoid people that are visibly armed.
Yeah.
How do they know what a camera looks like? You know, well, how do they know what a camera does? How do they know these things? Maybe from the people they've abducted. You know what I'm saying? Maybe there's some sort of communication that's able to take place after they're abducted where they basically at that point are able to kind of figure out what the hairless ones are doing out there and what they're capable of at that point. I don't know. It's just kind of like a little thing.
That's an interesting.
Yeah. So it's
Oh, Jeff Yarrington had one. This was at 7:47, long ago in a land far away. Jeff Yarrington said, could feral people be crossbreeding with Bigfoot? Or could feral people be the result of this hybridization that's going on?
I still don't think that there's populations of cave people out there when you talk about feral people.
Right.
I do think there's people that have like basically retreated from civilization and like 2 or 3 generations into it, they're basically feral.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if that's going on, maybe you have
that could be what
the more human appearing ones
are further down in the cross line there.
But they still have physical capabilities that would allow them to stay hidden and survive.
Yeah.
Out there at that point. We always talk about it. Old Eric R. Can I say his name? Well, that really get us in trouble.
Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer.
Yeah, was able to stay hidden for years with the full weight of the federal government after him.
Yeah.
And he's just a man, you know. Now imagine if you had physical gifts that far surpassed what a normal man would have. Stay hidden indefinitely, man. So especially if you could chase down wild game, if you could do anything like that. So, oh, this is a great one. Hold on. Jeff, Albert Osman described the adult female as old, not graceful, walked like a duck, similar to Patty in the film. Ho, ho, ho. But when you asked about Dogman, though, it's God, we're all over the damn place tonight. It's a topic that you have to dance around so much. We're tap dancing around certain things that, you know, we're all over the place, even more so than usual. But
we had to really spice it up after we had a very dense episode last week. You know, there was a lot of information, and now we're just relaxing, talking about the boning of the Bigfoot. You know what I'm saying?
So
this is a safe space.
But for the Dogman portion of it, I mean, we know that our cousins, you know what I'm saying, other hominids were able to interbreed with us at this point. You know what I'm saying? You know, they're close enough genetically for us to breed with. And you always hear that as far as like Neanderthals go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certain that they're eventually going to find out that happened with other offshoots,
Denisovans,
stuff like that. Yeah. So I think that, so we know that's possible. And that might just be that whatever Dogman is, it's just too genetically diverse from us for something like that to happen.
It's too far flung.
Too far flung for it. And they, you know, because again, even with like a lot of the like alien grays and everything like that, there's more physical similarities between a human and alien gray than there is between a human and a Dogman.
Yeah.
At that point. So maybe that's what the dog woman in the LBL was trying to do. Trying to grab herself a mate.
She's popping them teats out.
Popping them teats. We knew we were going to circle around to the dog woman teats. All right, let's see what else we got. We've got
every time we talk about that dog woman thing in the LBL, I just see MK's little illustration he did with the dog baby. Whee!
So anyway, see what else we got here. Kim's got a great one here. I think Dogman views us as an inferior species. And it just might come back down to compatibility. You know what I'm saying? Compatibility. All right, see what else we got here. Boy, people are having fun in this chat tonight. I think
you should. You should have a good time.
Enjoy yourself. Today. Enjoy yourself.
It's Monday. Let's have fun.
All All right, let's see what else we got. Oh, Miranda asked for a knife check.
Ah, yes.
Set mine down earlier when we start up. I have a RP Knives
It's RP Knives Day.
Forged Hunter, which has an absolutely just beautiful handle on it. I never know where to add on these.
I have a sort of smaller version, but mine has a different shaped blade. This is also a RP Knives. It's more of a Bowie, huh?
Yeah, it's a clip point, and that's bogwood.
That is Russian bogwood.
That was taken out of like
green
a yeah.
Is Russian bogwood. It's petrified Russian bogwood. So, in honor of Zena.
Anyway,
woman of the
looking through the chat right now, I think we had somebody in here just melting down because they were trying to drop wisdom on us when we were ignoring them.
Who?
I don't know. We just have. What is this one? Did we see the Deborah Stewart? Check out Timber Giant Bigfoot going back years. He posted a tree peaker tall, and then he posted a big Sasquatch like Patty. I don't know who Timber Giant Bigfoot is. Let me go and put that in here. One of the things also that I meant to touch upon earlier.
Patty was a big, bodacious Bigfoot, you know?
There is a story, and I'm going to have to look it up. There was a lady who was she was a playmate, Anna Marie Goddard, and they filmed a Sasquatch crossing in front of their RV. And I can't remember what they were out doing. They were doing something like model related, you know what I'm saying? But she was I don't know if she was with Playboy or
model related,
but they saw a Bigfoot crossing in front of their RV, and several people saw it. There's video that goes along with it. And
Marcus Aurelius is going into timeout. Not really. Don't put him in timeout. Did you see what he wrote?
I know what he wrote.
I'll show you in a minute. Finish this. Finish your thought.
So the Bigfoot was very noticeably male, and he was very noticeably
engorged,
interested in the playmate. Okay,
I used the wrong word.
She was very open about this sighting and everything like that. And that is, yeah, thanks for that, Jess. I think we were doing well until that. MK Ultra knows exactly what Playboy. Miss April 1998. So
good job, MK.
That is and everybody's kind of, she was in an RV and got that footage at that point. So that's one of those other things that, and if I remember correctly, a lot of times when she, Super. Yes, dear, I'm watching a show about Bigfoot breeding.
Leave me alone. I'm working.
I'm doing my research. Leave me alone. But that was one of the things that she caught a lot of flack for, because she was very open about the fact that there was
she could have put that on her resume.
Exactly, that it appeared to be very attractive to her.
Yeah.
So, research. Anyway, what were you going to have? What did you have?
Marcus Aurelius, just be honest. Did Bigfoot braid your hair for tonight's show?
Oh, Jesus. Watching my programs. Anyway, so that's all I got for it. She wasn't on a late night show. She went on a bunch of late night shows, and that was always what they wanted to focus on. And she was open about it. She was just like, listen, and there's footage for it. I don't know if you've ever seen the footage for it, but it's something's going on there. I'd play it, but I never want to like use people's copyrighted stuff on here. And I ain't tracking people down to get permission. But so what do you guys think, man? Is it a possibility? I think it's a possibility. I think that if you look at all of this, in its totality, that the argument could be made that humanity, since there's been a humanity around to have these experiences, has been the subject of crossbreeding. And we didn't even get into more of really touch upon, we talked about it briefly, but a lot of the ancient astronaut theory, they were breeding with human females. A lot of the biblical aspects of it, where the Watchers were breeding with, the daughters of man, and that's where the Nephilim came.
You know what we didn't talk about?
What didn't we talk about?
That guy that used to do those spoof Bigfoot videos where he was
Oh my
talking about
Lord, what is his name?
getting assaulted by a Bigfoot. The dog trainer guy? Yeah, if you find that. Good God, your search history is not great.
My search history is going to get me on a. Oh, good God! Why did I do this?
Why did you do this?
Why did I do this? Good God! I searced for.
Don't tell them what you.
Here we go. What is his name? Peter Kane.
Peter Kane dog training.
Yep. He ticks. He makes a lot of people.
Because people are like, do you think it's real?
Yeah. Joshua, how are you, sir?
Hello.
Welcome. But
April Black goes, Playboy model noticed squat crotch. Details at 11.
So it's a good one. Bonnie Blue, humans have kidnapped others for tribal diversity. Why not cryptids?
That's true.
And again, like I said, there's a lot of upside to it. Everything from like the genetic and resulting physical and intelligence, like benefits. The simple fact that they might need to do it for survival. That's often tied in with folklore with the Fae, that they needed humans to survive. A lot of the alien folklore, let's just call it, that they're from a race that genetically it's deteriorating and they need fresh, genetic material in order to keep themselves as a viable species at this point.
Danny B's savory roast beef and gravy says, Jesse, do you perhaps have a canned side that would go good with my savory roast beef gravy sandwich? Why, yes, I do, Danny B's savory roast beef and gravy. In fact, I have Hellbent holler beans.
Oh, good Lord.
When you're looking for the beaniest bean around, get the Hellbent holler bean. Isn't that amazing? So
Jesse got us some personalized.
Bush's there's no beans inside though. That's the scam, my friends. Bush's had a thing where you could fill out a form and you could possibly get your family's name on a can of beans.
We didn't think they were going to do Hellbent holler.
We thought it was going to have to be like the Johnsons, that they would see Hellbent holler and be like, we're not making this can of beans. But I came home today from taking the cat to the vet, and there it was sitting on my porch, a Hellbent holler can of beans.
Oh my God, we finally get that beautiful bean footage.
Look at that.
So anyway, we, a little weird topic tonight that we want to discuss, but I'm interested to see what you guys think. Like, leave a comment, kind of let me know what you're thinking on it. I know some people think it's happening. Some people think it's definitely not happening. It's obviously a topic that gets very strong opinions on it. So,
Joe's search history. Where is an octopus butt?
So anyway, but let us know what you think about that. Couple things we got coming up in the near future. And again, we'll be back to our normal programming tomorrow night, or not tomorrow night, next week. We went real deep on the.
I'm just now getting down to the.
We went real deep in with
the
mind speak and telepathy episode.
Yeah.
We wanted something to be completely on the opposite end of the spectrum. That's something that everybody would have fun with, and it would just be kind of more humorous than anything else. And that's what a lot of this is. It's a thought experiment. I've not.
To truly love the Bigfoot, you have to love its mind and its body.
Indeed. So, but we'll be back to our normal. Does Jesse's hat say I have rabies?
It does. Yes.
It does say I have rabies. Yes. That's what I'm living with here, man. So that's what I'm living with. But let us know what you guys think in the chat. So coming up on stuff, I tried to do a live stream from the woods, and I ran into some difficulties. The first time I tried it. I was actually going to try to go live Saturday, and we had massive storms sweep through here. Massive storms came through like real quick, messed a lot of stuff up. I'm glad I did not go out to the area that I was thinking about going to, because I would probably still be there. I probably not would have been able to chainsaw myself out, and they have not cleared a lot of that area yet. So
you would have had to just stick it out with the Lady Bigfoots.
I would have to stick it out with the Lady Bigfoots. So, but we will. I'm going to probably do another Joe Show live stream sometime this week. look for something else. I'm going to try to get out in the woods into that area and kind of continue the experiments, seeing what happens to me solo. Jesse's still working on our big project that's going to be coming out soon. And once she's got that in the can, we've got more Blackthorn Lake footage, and it starts to get really weird out there.
Yeah.
So we've got that coming out soon. Other than that, we are coming up on the time when we're going to be actually speaking at Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference.
Yep. That is going to be at the end of July. We're going to be at that. We are really excited about that. We're going to have a presentation for you guys.
Of course, if the invitation still stands after this show tonight, you know what I'm saying? So let's check our email, shall we? So
this is the list of speakers for Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference. We are going to go on at 11 a.m. We are not doing the Cryptid 101 with Mothman. I don't know why we're still there, but we're not doing that. I refuse. Denial. I think that's Brittany Barbieri doing that. But we will go on at 11 a.m. and we're going to be talking about the Southern Sasquatch. And depending on the response we get from this show, we might be talking about the sexy Southern Sasquatch.
Go out with a bang. Anyway, so there you go. So we got that coming up. But otherwise, yeah, like I said, that's all we got, guys. We're going to go get some food now. We'll be back to our regular, more serious, but not too serious. We've gone two extremes. We went really, really serious and really, really deep. Very, very not so serious with the show tonight. And we'll get back to we'll meander back towards.
Look at that. Isn't that cool? Look at that.
That's pretty rad. I don't like that photo, though. I thought they were going to use the other photo.
They covered my chin entirely, you know. I thought we didn't even send them that photo. You know that?
They just pulled that off them.
They pulled that one. They were like, this is the one we want. I sent them a variety. I sent the ones where we look really cool.
So anyway. All right. We're going to wrap it up, guys. We are done. Thank you.
SC007 said, Jesse, did the veterinarian give you the hat? No, I did not wear this to the vet today. They tend to look down on that. That's a big scare for them.
The rabies humor doesn't fly real well with the veterinarian's office.
Yeah, they don't like the rabies humor. I'm going to look through the chat real quick before I close out. Listen, if you could go over last week, we can go over for the Bigfoot Banging show, okay?
Yeah.
I'm just going to look through the chat real quick, and then we'll call it. Oh, yeah. Let me add another thing onto this. Don't forget, guys, we are going to be at the Tennessee Wildman Conference. I've got the graphic for that right there. Figure we better do all of this housekeeping at the end here. But, yes, we're going to also be at the Tennessee Wildman Conference. That's going to be August 16th in McMinnville, Tennessee. That's always a good time. We've done all of them so far. So come see us. Come hang out with us. That's going to be a lot of fun, too.
That's a more relaxed one. That's more where you actually have time to kind of like interact with people. And should have gone in with seltzer tablets to simulate foaming of the mouth with your I have rabies hat.
That'll go great for me.
Anyway, guys, thank you all so much. We appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure that you comment your theories below in the comments.
Lay them on us.
Lay them on us. Do you think that there is a human hybridization Bigfoot thing going on?
So
have you hybridizationized yourself with a Bigfoot? Tell us all about it in the comments. Actually, don't tell us all about it.
Don't keep that to yourself.
Just keep that to yourself. That's a private matter for you and your therapist. Thank you guys for joining us for another edition of Hellbent Live. My name is Jesse. This is Joe. Make sure you don't get snatched up and woodwived up. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Good night, Hellbenders.